Yay on the Just Baseball Show. Happy Friday, everybody. It's November 22nd. We're talking about the National League Central. Of course, there's a trade rumor that ever so timely falls into this division that we will talk about when we get to that team. Spoiler alert, they are coming second. But the Brewers won this division. We're going to start with the Brewers. We're going to work all the way to the bottom dwelling Pirates. Jack and Peter, Just Baseball Show. As always, it is presented by BetMGM. How are you, Petey, my boy?
Not good. Not good at all.
Why not?
I'm back in California, which is nice, back home with the family, so I should be feeling great, right? I'm out of the New York smog in Santa Barbara. Weather is
Is it
beautiful.
smog or is it just like kind of garbage fumes that push upwards?
I think that's what creates the smog. It's the
Got
garbage
it.
fumes going up with
Got it.
fumes going
Okay.
down. I mean, there's multiple fires right now in New York City. Hopefully
Oh
everybody's
yeah.
okay, but it's also tough to transition from that being like that's not why I'm in a bad mood because that's
Right.
objectively bad. But
Right.
I'm starting to prepare for the reality that Juan Soto is not a New York Yankee. And it's really, really tough on my mental. It's something that I can't stop thinking about before I go to bed. It's the first thing that I think about when I wake up. And this is not a therapy session, but this is a
Sounds like
baseball
one.
show. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be,
Okay.
but this is a baseball show. And we continue to hear how Steve Cohen's wallet will not be denied and the Dodger connection, how the Blue Jays are very, very heavily involved. And maybe it's on me for listening to too much New York sports radio,
Yeah.
knowing that the Yankees are going to do that thing where if it gets above a certain price, they're going to rationalize it to themselves that it's too much money for a guy like Juan Soto. And I'm sure, they're great at manipulating the media, that they're going to make it seem like he left and it's his fault if the Yankees don't sign him. I can just already picture this. And on justbaseball.com, I'm going to write an article. What do the Yankees do? What moves will they make when they inevitably don't sign Juan Soto? I'm at a low point this offseason. I won't lie to you. Everything is bad.
What did Hal Steinbrenner say? I've got it here from Tim Healy. Hal Steinbrenner on the importance of keeping Juan Soto, especially in the context of fans' desires. Quote, I've got ears. I know what's expected of me. So you take that and you think that they are going to be priced out of the Soto sweepstakes?
Can you search another quote by Hal Steinbrenner
Yeah,
for
sure.
me? Because I don't want to read it to you. I want you to read it and I want to have your reaction. He said
Yeah.
something about the fact that they went to California to meet with him is a big deal. I would search Hal
Um,
Steinbrenner, California, and see if it comes up.
okay, so I have this from Tim Healy. Hal Steinbrenner on the Yankees meeting with Juan Soto. Quote, we had a good meeting. It was very honest. He said it lasted a couple of hours. How confident is Hal that Yanks will sign Soto? Quote, no idea. We'll be in the mix. Hal Steinbrenner, California. I will say as I search this, if it's the last thing you think of before you go to bed and the first thing you think of when you wake up, might I recommend finding a hobby?
No, this is my
No,
hobby.
out on that.
The
Hal
Big Short.
Steinbrenner.
The
Yeah,
Big
here we
Short.
go.
I'm happy when I'm unhappy.
Got it. This is from Disha Thosar, does a great job. Hal Steinbrenner said Soto had questions about the Yankees player development process during the meeting in California. Is that what you're talking about or no?
Yeah.
Steinbrenner said, quote, I just think he didn't really spend any time at our player development complex. He's asking this about all the clubs, I'm sure. He just wants to know about the different systems, the different players, the pipeline, and all of that. That's the quote that you
No,
wanted me to find?
there was something else that he said where they asked it was almost like they're asking how confident he is and
Yeah, he
the
said, I don't know. We'll
possibility of
be in the
leaving.
mix.
No, but he maybe that's not the full quote. I saw a quote where he was kind of saying, "Well, we went out to California to meet him, right? We're obviously in the mix." Like defensive like that, which really
Yeah.
rubbed me the wrong way.
It shouldn't rub you the wrong way because they flew out to California. Like all of these teams are courting him
I understand.
when in pretty much every other situation, you will fly these guys in to have a conversation in your market and they take a peek at the market versus Soto. It's, hey, you're going to come to me and we're going to do this. And I know that there have been some other big ticket free agents that, get executives to fly to them and sit down in their living room and chat with them. But I wouldn't read too far into that. And at the end of the day, this guy has gotten hundreds of questions about retaining Juan Soto. it's okay for him to snap a little bit and just say, like, dude, listen, like, of course we're in the mix. We're the New York Yankees. He played for us last year. We got to the World Series. We have been known as a big spender. Of course we're in the mix. Like, I know that there is the cliche of there is no such thing as a stupid question. Sometimes there are stupid questions. And I think that the 150th time Hal Steinbrenner is asked about Juan Soto, if he believes that they're in the mix, that is borderline a stupid question. Of course they are.
Remember when I said this wasn't a therapy session?
It kind of is now.
Not kinda, it 100% is. That's exactly what I needed here because I am
Okay.
reading too far into all this. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
just
Like,
burying my head in this, and I gotta relax. But
yeah.
this is very important to me. This is like the most important thing that has ever happened to my team.
Listen, it's not like Hal Steinbrenner has a revelation every single morning that he needs to share with the New York media. It's the same conversation with Soto as it may have been in June. It's like, yeah, we're gonna try and pay him. If he gets too expensive for us, then so be it. I don't know what too expensive is. If Steve Cohen's willing to throw $700 million at Juan Soto, like I could see the Yankees pivoting just because 700 million makes 0 cents aside from a guy that is going to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing for you, and there's one guy that does that, and that's Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
So I understand if you pivot because the number becomes so egregious that only Steve Cohen can do it, but I don't think they're pivoting because they feel like the grass is greener elsewhere. So I would not worry about that right now. We're so early in this process, and frankly, like I think it's just gonna hit us all like a punch to the face, like surprise. It's oh Soto's here. It's just gonna happen. And I don't know what it's going to happen. It's going to happen in a week. It's going to happen in 3 months. I'm not sure.
I needed this. Thank you.
Yeah, there
I
you
needed
go.
it. I'm
We
not in the best spot. I needed that a lot.
understood. Should we talk about the NL Central now?
I would love to. I love this division. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it was a fun division, and it was
Very
a
fun.
division where I think the baseline talent level in it could have been oversold at points, but I also think that there were a lot of people that either skewed to, oh, this is the most competitive division in Major League Baseball versus this is the worst division in Major League Baseball. It felt like a lot of people were at the extremes of the pendulum when I feel like this was just a good competitive division. There were teams that are a step away from being a legitimate contender. I think four of these five teams, three of these, five teams are a step or two or three away from being a legitimate contender. And then there's one that's on the downswing. And we're going to talk about them in the middle of this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's when you look at each team, you find crevices and areas that you think are much better than maybe the overall baseball audience thinks they are. And then
Yeah.
you find, all right, this is the reason you won 77, 78 games. How can we improve this? So again, I'm really excited that further on in this offseason, we're going to play general manager for every team because there are a ton of ways that four teams in this division can change in order to be legit contenders. Like they're just a few pieces away. And then there's one team where, we'll talk about.
Bingo. So I do think that's a really important point to note. And I think if you were to put every aspect of these five teams in a T chart, it would be the most even T chart that you see of any division in baseball. And I'm talking like pros and cons, pros on one side, cons on the other side. And pros could be the Pirate rotation, the Cubs rotation, the Brewer lineup. The cons could be the Brewers rotation, the Cubs bullpen, the Pirates lineup. Like, I feel like if you divided all of these teams into three bunches where it's like lineup, rotation, bullpen, you could have a very balanced pros and cons list within this division.
And when we're talking about those deficiencies, right? If you're talking about the Cubs bullpen, there are a few arms there that we really want to build off here, right?
Yeah.
The Brewers rotation, building off of Tobias Myers, they still got so there's the
Right. Yeah.
parts of the deficiencies that you're talking about when you're talking about the total unit, there's still a lot of really talented players within those. So
Yeah.
those deficiencies, if they are addressed this offseason, and you don't even need huge moves for some of them, a lot of these teams can take the next step up because, especially with the Reds, which I really want to talk about later in the video, I think it was the most unlucky season in Major League Baseball for one of these teams. While other teams, maybe they were unlucky in some areas. It's a fascinating division. Let's break it down.
Let's do it. Okay, let's start with the Milwaukee Brewers here. The Milwaukee Brewers this season went 93 and 69. They win the division. Pat Murphy was the National League Manager of the Year. They were 10th in team OPS. They were 6th in runs scored. They were 17th in starter ERA, but they had the number 2 bullpen in all of baseball, only behind the Cleveland Guardians. They had Christian Yelich playing at an all-star level before he went down and, he missed the remainder of the season after undergoing back surgery. But William Contreras was a borderline 5-win catcher again. He had an 830 OPS. Bryce Terang was a 4.5-win player and won the Platinum Glove in the National League. Jackson Chourio broke out in a massive way after a slow first couple of months. And Joey Ortiz put together one of the more underrated rookie seasons that we've seen in a little bit. There were complementary pieces. Um, it was pretty well documented that I doubted their rotation from about May 15th onward. Dallas Keuchel got a start for this team this year. But at the end of the day, they got to the wild card series and they were a Pete Alonso swing away from going to the NLDS. This was a hugely successful year for the Milwaukee Brewers. And they did it by piecemealing it together, man. Like they found Tobias Myers, who was a 40-man casualty several times. They found Colin Ray, who was pitching abroad 2 years ago. Like this is as fulfilling a small market story as you'll find in Major League Baseball.
100%. And I talk about my bad takes plenty. We
Yeah.
just lamented a few weeks ago how doubting Freddie Freeman is one of the worst takes of my life.
Yeah.
I think one of the best takes I've had this season is being all in on the Milwaukee Brewers from day one. I bet on them plus 800 to win the division. And to put that in perspective for people who, don't really understand the betting odds, no problem at all. Right? The Guardians were plus 400 to win the division, 4-1 odds. Right? The Brewers were double that. This team was kind of left for dead. No Corbin Burns, no Brandon Woodruff. Josh Hader is gone. So the market thinks now the Brewers are not going to be very good. But the reason I was so heavily invested in the Brewers from start to finish was those three guys were not why I thought that the Brewers organization continued to win. Right? They're very, very good players, but the Brewers, similarly to the Guardians, are one of the best organizations at building the little things.
Yeah.
Right? They had the best manager in Craig Counsell. And what do? They hired the manager of the year in Pat Murphy. They're always so good defensively. They're always so good on the base paths. They always have a great bullpen. So when your stars leave, and the reason that the Brewers are always okay, even though their fans are obviously devastated every single time a star leaves, is because the Brewers are built like the Rays and they're built like the Guardians. But for whatever reason, they're not treated like those organizations, which I kind of never understood why. They were never in the same boat. But I think they continually prove why they should be considered one of the smartest organizations in baseball that is able to build a core and is able to build a skeleton that even if some of the flashy meat is taken off the bone, they still have that skeleton that I think is going to continually win them games moving forward. Like I even look next year, right? They're now adding Brandon Woodruff back. Yeah. And this team, while losing Willy Adames, people are going to doubt them again. And I'm sure they're going to plug in maybe a Joey Ortiz who takes that next step up. I just think that this team is really well built. I think that even Dave Stearns leaving, their GM still did a really good job. I mean, the skeleton is there. And what a year again.
That's Matt Arnold, who's the GM in Milwaukee, and he's doing a phenomenal job. And I will push back on them not being in the Brewer and the Guardian.
You mean the Ray?
Or the Ray and the Guardian bucket. Because I feel like this is kind of a recent development for them, the churn and burn of guys that are expiring. Like, don't forget, we grew up with the Milwaukee Brewers that had Prince Fielder and had Ryan Braun and like Ben Sheets when we were very, very young.
Yeah, but that was like a decade ago.
It was. I mean, Sheets was more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they were a team that had Lorenzo Cain for a minute, and like they traded for Yelich when he was at his peak value, and they paid Christian Yelich. So I do think that they've always been a smaller market, but they didn't lean into the hey, we're going to recoup on a lot of these expiring guys, as notably as the Guardians and the Rays did. At least like they were a little bit later to the party than I think those other two.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say that because, the Brewers haven't always been like this, but I think in the last half decade, they've showed that they can compete at a similar level,
Yeah.
and they're the one winning the division. Now, I know it hasn't exactly, matriculated into, playoff success, but the thing is, if Devin Williams locates that pitch a little bit better to Pete Alonso, we're talking about them facing the Dodgers, and maybe we have even different expectations. So, and of course, now Devin Williams is likely to leave,
Yeah.
which you look at the Brewers bullpen with Trevor McGill stepping up in that closer role when Williams was out and doing really, really well. I mean, that's the Brewers way. That's why I just continue to buy into this team more and more, even through this offseason going into next year.
So I'm with you. Do you worry that they don't have that elite closer because they made the move from
No,
Hader to Devin Williams?
no. No. I think Trevor McGill can step in there and do perfectly fine. I think Jared Koenig is a freaking beast. I think Joel Payamps is really solid, right? And Brian Hudson taking the next step, pitching to a 1.70 ERA this year, right? No, I think that they are totally fine. I mean, who knows?
Okay.
Maybe DL Hall doesn't even work out as a starter, and then he can become another Josh Hader type,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they just have so much talent,
Yep.
young talent that nobody really knows about. So, and even like Jared Koenig and Joel Payamps, they're both 30,
Yep.
but they're operating like legit relievers. So just because they aren't high end names doesn't mean they can't produce high end results at the back end of that bullpen. So I think
And
Devin Williams leaving is honestly going to not be so bad of a thing
I think
if
they
they
have
can
like
recoup some assets for him, right? If
yeah,
they let
I
him go for free, it's obviously not
they're
good.
not going to let him go for free. I guarantee you they're going to trade him and they're going to get a decent prospect haul because they
Yeah,
know what they're doing over there.
exactly.
Yeah, and like I don't. Abner Uribe still kind of feels like a reclamation project. It feels like his value was just tanked this past year. I think he can rebuild some of that value.
But relievers, like I mean, we're who Abner Uribe, like at his best, is almost like a Camilo Doval type, where it's just straight gas and it's so freaking nasty. But if things go awry,
Yeah,
a guy like Camilo Doval can get sent down to the minor leagues. But would any of us be surprised if Camilo Doval pitches to a 3-2 next year with a ton of strikeouts and
no,
has plenty of saves? Absolutely not. That's
no.
that's the Abner Uribe train. It's some of these pitchers where at their best, they're some of the best pitchers in
Yeah.
baseball. At their worst, they're in the minors. It's just such a big graph
They
almost.
also they also have two disgusting arms coming. I think Craig Yoho can be a closer. Craig Yoho, who's in AAA,
I
has
mean,
the nuts, like the nastiest changeup that I think I've ever seen. And then
yeah, hold
Jacob
on.
Mizorowski, they made that move to the pen too.
I was just going to say the other guy, Yoho, is that who you said?
Craig Yoho, yeah.
I've never heard that name in my life. I automatically believe in him. I mean, what a name.
Yeah, he's balling out. It was like he went to I think Houston as a position player and then finished at Indiana and the Brewers found him after like 1 year of pitching in college and they found a guy with like more horizontal separation between a sweeper and a changeup than like you've ever seen. It was a
Mm,
nuts at bat to see. And then Jacob Mizorowski made the move to the bullpen for the last month of the AAA season and he was disgusting. Like
disgusting.
as electric as the best version of Jacob Mizorowski that we've seen. I think I was excited for the Brewers coming into 24 because I essentially factored in DL Hall and Robert Gasser
Hmm.
into this rotation. Neither happened, and they still win the division. Like
Yeah.
Gasser, when he comes back from Tommy John surgery, I feel pretty confident in being a good starting pitcher. And DL Hall, he's going to figure out a way to be a productive major leaguer. And I think same goes for Mizorowski, and same goes for Craig Yoho as well. So the future, even if they are trading Devin Williams, and even if they are losing Willie Adames, does seem somewhat bright. Let's go to the Chicago Cubs here. The Cubs finished 83 and 79. They were 13th in team OPS. They were 12th in runs scored. They were 6th in starter ERA. They were 12th in bullpen ERA. I know a lot of the conversation around the Chicago Cubs is going to be around their lineup and how that is probably going to change going into 2025, but they were 12th in bullpen ERA. I love you, Cubs fans. Cubs fans talk about that bullpen like they were 28th in bullpen ERA.
Yeah, because it did feel like that, to be fair to them.
It did. It
Like,
totally did.
there's Porter Hodge and there's Tyson Miller, who both had really, really good seasons. But then there's a couple other guys. Jorge Lopez came over, and I was kind of surprised. Like, Jorge Lopez continued to bounce around, and he felt like he lost it. And when the Cubs added him back, I was like, I think this is kind of Jorge Lopez's last chance. What does he do? Go over there, 2.03 ERA. Keegan Thompson put up a 2.67. Like there was arms in there that really helped out the 12th.
Yeah.
But what I will say is Albert Alzolay just got DFA'd.
Adbert. Yeah.
Or what did I say?
Albert.
Yeah,
Adbert.
Adbert Alzolay just got DFA'd. Right. So I understand where they're coming from. Mark Leiter Jr. got traded over to the Yankees. Thanks a lot for that, Cubs fans. I mean,
Yeah.
no, I'm just kidding. But I see where they're going with that because when I was watching Cubs games and that bullpen came in, it just felt like you were walking a tightrope, even with some of the best arms. It just
Yeah.
never really felt like the door was shut all season long. And they should have won a lot more games with how good that starting rotation was.
Yeah.
So I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, I'm with you. I will also say just real quick about the rotation. Like, adding a frontline arm shouldn't be as much of a priority for them as it feels like it is.
Hmm.
Like
Couldn't agree
they,
more.
I mean, why do you need to be in the Burns conversation or the Snell conversation, or even like go a step down the Freed conversation? Why do you need to be in that right now when you've got a guy in Shota Imanaga that was awesome? It was 173 innings at a 2.91. Justin Steele missed a couple of turns with that hamstring issue, but 134 innings at a 307. Jamison Tyon 165 at a 327. Javier Assad 147 at a 373. Like, I understand that those are four guys and you need a fifth, and Kyle Hendricks was the guy that was essentially filling in. But like Ben Brown, looking forward, Ben Brown proved something this year, I think.
I think so
Like
too.
Cade Horton's going to be healthy again this year. There's opportunities here to make this a five and like a five-headed monster without paying somebody big money. Like I feel like you should spend money elsewhere. You should spend money in the bullpen. You should spend some money in the lineup. Like, don't pay $200 million for a starting pitcher. You've got several guys that I think are nine-figure caliber pitchers here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This was a unit that during the season I never fully appreciated and I never gave them, I think, their love. And I think a lot of us were like that,
Yeah,
where
I
we were
think.
intrigued by Shota.
Uh-huh.
Thiel gets hurt, but is obviously good. And we know that. So it's kind of expectations. Well, he should be good, but he was hurt. So it felt like a down year. Tyone, I just don't think any of us believed that that was real and that was happening. Javier Assad, it's the same thing. Not a lot of strikeouts. Underlying metrics aren't great. But when we interview Justin Steele, he's talking how much he loves Javier Assad because he says, yeah, your numbers are great, but every single time we watch him, it's 6 innings, 1 run, or 5 innings, 1 run, and you look up and right, we're in the sixth inning and we're winning the ball game. And I think to myself, you're right. So that's your four. And
Yeah.
then Ben Brown is showing really, really good stuff and pitched to a mid threes. So looking at it after the season, I'm kicking myself for not giving this unit enough credit during the regular season because they were really, really good. And I'm so glad you brought that up, where Burns should not be on the forefront of this team. I want to address power. They were 20th in home runs. I really need an impact bat in this lineup because they have a lot of guys who I think if I'm an opposing pitcher, I'm kind of scared of.
Yeah.
Like if you put 100% of your time into the Otani game plan, all these guys you're putting 60% into it. But there's like 7 guys that you're putting 60% into it. Like Dansby and Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki, and you can kind of continue to go down the line, and they all have their moments and they all put together good seasons. But I need like a Tatis in here. I
Yeah.
need like a superstar to really make people afraid. And then the other complementary pieces, I'm not calling them complementary because they're all studs, but they're not stars. I need some big time bats. That's what we should be looking at.
Yeah, I think star power could really help in this lineup. And I don't know where the star power is going to be. Like, it would be really nice if they did trade for a very good catcher. And they have the farm system to do it. The Angels clearly shuttered the Logan O'Hoppe conversation. So the Cubs were like, we'll just take the backup, go and acquire Matt Tice. By the way, Ben Brown, neck issue. I just read something real quick that said he may not be ready for opening day, at least in the starting rotation. They could look
Mhm.
at him as a depth option to open, but I'm talking long term, like Ben Brown in 2026 and onward is a piece of your starting rotation. I think he showed well enough for that.
Is Wicks going to be ready by opening day?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, it's weird. So it's like I think they need another arm,
Yeah.
but I think that can be. I mentioned Eovaldi or Shane Bieber. Like I think that could be that. Now, I don't think Eovaldi or Shane Bieber is getting close to nine figures.
And another thing, yeah, I want to continue to build off that point,
Yeah,
but
but the lineup, yeah,
yeah, no, but I want to go back to the 6 and starter ERA thing for a second.
okay,
Like this team had a batting practice pitcher at the bottom of their
correct,
rotation all year and they finished sixth. Like
correct.
again, that's just furthering the point of how good this rotation is and how I want to add bats. Like I don't want to go spend money on Shane Bieber. Like Shane Bieber's great and any team would love to have him and I think he's going to be worth the money, but that's not where the money should be allocated. Which then furthers like I want to talk about this Cody Bellinger potential trade because I think it's perfect. Like I know Cubs fans really like Cody Bellinger. He's really fun to watch. He's a fan favorite. Like I totally get that. But I think the Cubs are realizing like they made the mistake when they signed him to this, multi-year deal. I know that there's opt-outs and stuff like that, which makes the choices easier. But I think even last offseason, a lot of us read the writing on the wall that this guy is going to be due for some massive regression. I think they saw it last year. So I think Cody Bellinger was their attempt at signing a big time star in this lineup because I think they know that they need it. So them moving off Cody Bellinger, even if they have to soak some of the money, even if they don't win the trade, even in the long term, I think it's actually like player versus player. I think it's better for this organization. I think moving off Nico Horner is better for this organization. And the reason being is you now add Pete Crow Armstrong, who can really play center field and can give you what a Nico Horner offensively was giving you. So something that I'm kind of looking at right now is I know Michael Busch established himself at first base. What if we moved Michael Busch to second and signed Pete Alonso? And again, that's more playing GM, but I'm more just pointing to, I think, some of the deficiencies in how they can be creative here with this lineup because they have a lot of good players and some of the players on the team can move around a little bit, which is,
Yeah,
obviously a good thing. So those are some fun moves that I want to talk about in the offseason. But I would say the biggest step up and the player that I'm most excited for is the way that Pete Crow Armstrong ended the year because he can be an 80 defender when he's got his head screwed on tight, right? Because sometimes it can get a little crazy, but he is young, so he's going to continue to learn the game, learn the position with that speed and that arm and those
yeah.
instincts. I mean, no wonder he's got an 80 grade future value in center, and with his offensive profile now, I mean, he's a really exciting player.
I think Bush moving to second would create a borderline bad defensive situation at second base. Like I think Bush would be a bad defender at second.
Okay.
I feel like they would prefer not to stomach that. I think Bush is their first baseman. If they have the opportunity at Pete Alonso, I think they're going to pursue that, and then Bush all of a sudden becomes expendable. Although with the 2024 season, I don't think Bush should be considered expendable.
No
I'm not
shot.
saying that he's Pete Alonso, but you can find ABs for Michael Bush, and if you can, pursue an Alonso, you can dangle a Seiya Suzuki and see if somebody is willing to take on that contract,
See,
and then all of a sudden,
I don't want them to trade any of those guys. Like
I hear you, but at the end of the day, like they probably will have to if they want to maximize what this lineup can be.
but
There would,
I think that's trading Bellinger. I think Seiya.
I
The
think Seiya is
things,
awesome.
yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but he's not that expensive, and he's a really good bat, and he just doesn't play great outfield defense, which is tough.
No,
Because
so
maybe
he's
is
a
he more of a
DH, and
DH?
like, can you upgrade? I mean, we're talking about top end talent. I think they have a lot of B plus talents right
A
now.
lot of solid guys.
Where can you make it an A?
Yeah,
And the answer is probably in the Bellinger area or the Seiya Suzuki area or the Nico Horner area. So I am curious to see what happens. I also feel like they'd be comfortable moving Nico Horner because they feel like Matt Shaw is ready.
that's another
And
good
Matt
point.
Shaw is looking phenomenal in the Premier 12
That's
still.
another good point. I'd rather keep Seiya and I'd trade Cody and I would trade Nico Horner and you go Matt Shaw and you go Pete Armstrong and you might create more war from those two guys other than Bellinger and Nico Horner next year. You never know.
And then all of a sudden you've got Owen Casey that you can plug into the situation as
Yeah.
well, and Casey can play right.
Like this is almost this team feels to me like the National League version of the Red Sox, kind of. Like
yeah, where
they
they're
have better pitching
close.
though.
You can totally see it. Like you're
Yeah,
close, you're
like it's
close, you're
coming.
close. Like just be the big bad Cubs for a minute.
Yeah,
Be
for a
like
second.
yeah, like be the big bad Red Sox for a minute. Like just
Yeah.
spend on one guy and you can
Yes.
make me feel really good.
100% agree. And
Yeah.
you can create a good bullpen here. I mean, they just traded for Eli Morgan. They give up a pretty good prospect to do it.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, he was a great reliever for Cleveland last year. Good trade again for Cleveland. I think it's going to look more like a win-win because I think Eli Morgan is pretty solid, but you can add like guys that, you know, are a couple $1 million. You don't need to go add the big time closer. Like that's not what they need. They just need depth and they need a lot of guys in the middle because the reason I think that Cubs fans thought that they ranked 28th in bullpen ERA was these middle guys that just could not get it out. Like
Yeah.
fill in those depths. Let's get a 0 in the 6th. Let's get a 0 in the 7th. Like let's do those things and then
And
get
and
to Miller and Hodge in the 8th and ninth.
and those options exist. I also think that
Yes.
there's a ninth inning guy out there for them. I tweeted about it like a month ago when he became available. I think Camilo Doval is a really good fit
Yeah,
for the
like
Chicago
those kind
Cubs.
of moves. I want to see them make those. And then
Yeah,
I need a big time bat in here. I need a 40 home run guy. Like I would love Santander on this team. Like that. I need some big time bats.
sure, but it's not like you're getting much better defensively out there. But
I
like,
know.
does it matter at the end of the day? But yeah, like a Clay Holmes, like go get a Clay Holmes to throw the eighth, and then
No, but
Camilo
not even
Doval can
that.
throw them.
He's too expensive. Like don't spend your money there. I want
Okay, so
less.
like, how
Like
about
Duvall's
Dylan
perfect.
Floro?
Yeah. That's gross, but
How about AJ Minter? How about Seawald? Like guys
like
like
go
that.
pick up those guys.
How
Yes.
about Trinan
Cheaper.
in his age 38 season?
Bang. Let's do those moves. We
Yeah,
can
like
recreate this bullpen easily.
Eli Morgan giving the ball to Tommy Canley, change up sitting,
Sure,
population
sure.
2 innings.
Yeah. But don't go give Clay Holmes a 3 year, $50 million deal and be like, we solved our bullpen. Like, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. Spend that $50 million on 5 bullpen arms.
yeah. I could see that quantity over quality in the bullpen, and then you're
Yes.
looking for quality over quantity in that lineup right now.
Yep.
So, all right, we are going to talk about the team trending in the opposite direction. But before that, quick break. Cubs fans love hearing it. The Cubs are on the up and up. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the down and down. And they're looking to reassess what they're doing in the minor leagues. We obviously have a succession plan for John Mozeliak that is Heim Bloom, and there will be an emphasis on improving the minors. They will be cutting money. And it seems likely that they're moving Helsley and maybe others this offseason, which is crazy. This is not a situation that we have seen the St. Louis Cardinals in our lives. I'm 26. I don't
Yeah.
know if we've seen the Cardinals operate like this.
I don't remember it. And it's
I don't
so
remember it.
funny because at the beginning of the season, remember when I was harping on adding Kyle Gibson, adding Lance Lynn to this rotation? I was saying these are good moves. I know they don't sound good, but the Cardinals need guys to eat up innings so the bullpen can have a little bit of a rest and that there's good enough arms in the bullpen that if arms aren't used as much that they will perform better and the overall pitching is going to be much better. The problem was that Lance Lynn and Sonny Gray had the same ERA.
Yeah.
The problem is that Miles Michaelis is Kyle Hendricks adjacent from last year. I mean, Miles Michaelis was objectively terrible. I'm sure he'd say the same thing.
He
And
had
this
a
is a guy who we
weird
can
run.
hold to a higher standard here.
Yeah.
2 years ago in 2022, Miles Michaelis pitched to a 3.2 ERA in 200 innings. This year he pitched to a 5.4. It just can't happen. Right? So the move for Kyle Gibson, he threw a ton of innings and basically did exactly what I said because that's what a guy like Kyle Gibson is going to do kind of forever. A 4.2 ERA in 180 innings, giving you a chance to win the ball game every day. Lance Lynn put up a 3.84 ERA. The problem was Lance Lynn was a little bit hurt. So I know Lance Lynn had some really, really bad starts, but Lance Lynn also kept you guys in a lot of ball games. The problem was that Sonny Gray didn't exactly step up. He pitched okay, right? But if you ask Sonny Gray, would you take a 3.84 ERA, 166 inning season? He'd be like, that's terrible because I'm Sonny Gray and he deserves a much better season than that. Um, so that's the rotation. And then on the offensive side, it was gut-wrenching to watch the Cardinals this year because I go watch the Cardinals for Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, and both of them fell way below their career averages. So then what am I watching? I'm watching Mason Wynn, who is
Yeah.
an excellent addition. They basically created their own Dansby Swanson with more flair, right? Just an incredibly good defensive player who does everything on the baseball field at an above average level, right? He hits for some power, he steals some bags,
Yeah.
the bat to ball's there, right? He does everything pretty well, and he's just a really, really sound player who they can build around. But then what, right? Because Wilson Contreras had a great year offensively in the games that he played, but he was hurt for a lot of the year. You saw Ivan Herrera kind of take that next step. The guy hit 300. He put up a 2-win season in like 80 games. But again, it was 80 games. Right? So everything that we went to go see the Cardinals for fell way below expectations, and then we were trying to find pieces of what to be excited about, and really all that we were left with is that Wilson Contreras is still a very good hitter when he's healthy, and Mason Wynn is awesome. And that's what we
Yeah.
were left with, and that's going to produce a very below average season. And
Well,
that's
and Wilson's reportedly playing first base in 2025.
which I
So,
agree with now.
you know,
I've come full circle on that one. I think that is the right move that they should be
yeah,
doing here.
no more broken forearms when he gets a swing to the arm. Like not even a backswing, a swing to the arm. Like JD Martinez broke his forearm with a swing because he was that close to the plate. Um, yeah, I mean, I called Jordan Walker's breakout before this year. Jordan Walker was in Memphis for the overwhelming majority of the year. Victor Scott
Yeah.
was in Memphis for the overwhelming majority of the year. Dylan Carlson got traded. I'll run you through like those four pillar numbers that I've been gathering. They were 83 and 79. They were 16th in team OPS, 22nd in runs scored. They were 20th in starter ERA. They were 7th in bullpen ERA. The thing that jumps out to me, how can a team be 16th in team OPS, but all the way down at 22nd in runs scored? The answer is situational baseball, and
Yeah.
the answer is scoring position. The St. Louis Cardinals had a 645 team OPS with runners in scoring position. That was the 28th best mark in baseball. The only teams worse than them with runners in scoring position were the Chicago White Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays. The A's, the Angels, the Marlins, the Pirates, the Mariners, they were all better than the St. Louis Cardinals with runners in scoring position. And when you talk about striking out with runners in scoring position, the Cardinals were up there, man. They K'd 341 times with runners in scoring position. That was a top 10 mark in all of baseball. Like, they could not hit when the hit mattered.
Yep.
And that sucks. And I'm sorry. But,
Yeah.
I think that's just a summation of all the pieces that you laid out here, where it's like everybody had a down year. Everybody was lacking slug. There was not a singular guy that I point to and I'm like, you were an all-star caliber bat this year. I don't think there was one.
You could say, I mean, you can't say Mason Wynn because the bat wasn't what potentially could get him an all-star nod. It was the glove combined. It was the full value of him. And you could say Wilson Contreras, but he played 84 games. But to your point, for the Cardinals to be really good, Brendan Donovan needs to put up a 4 or 5 win season, right? He needs to be the Ben Zobrist. He needs
And he
to
put up a
be,
2.5 win season. It was still
yeah,
like
it's like,
somewhat
okay,
productive, but yeah.
Lars Nootbaar needs to be healthy, and he was kind of healthy. He played 109 games, but just wasn't very good, right? Alec Burleson, if you look at the numbers, like Alec Burleson, when I watch Alec Burleson, feels like a better hitter than he is.
But a 104 OPS plus.
It's like, okay. Like all the guys who you expect to take the next step up to be the complementary, really good pieces for Goldschmidt and Arenado, none of them really stepped up. Goldschmidt and Arenado stepped back, and you had Mason Wynn. So that's why when we were on our NL Central Stadium tour, we were talking with a bunch of Cardinals fans, and I'm asking them who their favorite players are right now. All they can talk about is Mason Wynn. That's it. That's all they talk about.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals, like I'm sure Cardinals fans are not used to, we have one player to talk about right now, which why it feels so weird to talk about the Cardinals in this light because, like, what do they do? And I think the reason that you, Arm, and I are very confused about the Cardinals is there's a lot to get rid of here, and there's like a lot of changes need to be made. That's why they're bringing in Heim Bloom, who's kind of the complete opposite of a John Mozeliak in a way, right? They need a full revamp here. They're like the better version of the AL Blue Jays, right? If we're comparing teams, right? The Cubs are kind of like the Red Sox. The Cardinals are eerily similar to the Blue Jays, and that's not a boat you want to be in.
Yeah. I I don't know. I almost feel like this situation is worse because the Blue Jays, like you have a generational talent in Vladdy.
But
And
to be
you have
fair, the Cardinals did win 10 more games than the Blue Jays did last year.
yeah,
So situationally, I could see where you're saying, but they were much more productive than the Blue Jays were last year. That's why I kind of equate the two.
yeah. I understand that. Yeah, I just feel like, the Cardinals are a bit more veteran in a bad way. Like I feel like they're just older than Toronto is. Like Toronto, the guys that were underperforming, like Bo Bichette's in his mid-20s. You know what I mean? Like Alejandro Kirk is in his early to mid-20s. These are guys that like have time to turn it around. I don't know if they turn it around with the Toronto Blue Jays, and like they do have some older guys that are coming off the books eventually, like George Springer they're settled with, and they had Justin Turner for a good bit there. Um, but like that rotation, I mean, Toronto had a bunch of guys that underperformed expectations for them, like a Kevin Gausman underperformed, a Yusei Kikuchi underperformed. The Cardinals, like, you got what you were supposed to get from everybody except Sonny
I don't think they
and
were
probably
expecting a
Michaelis.
That's the thing,
From
though.
Michaelis.
Isn't it kind of the same, though? I mean,
Yeah,
Gosman struggled. They didn't
I guess,
struggle the
but
same
Gausman went from elite to average. Michaelis went from above average to,
to
this is
horrible.
batting practice. This is batting practice,
But even like if you compare Kyle Gibson and Kevin Gosman's years, they're not that different,
which is so
which is
weird.
crazy,
It's
right?
hard for me to wrap my peanut brain around that.
Me too. But so yeah, there are problems on both sides here, and at least the Blue Jays,
Yeah.
right? To your point about them being in a better position, they're at least in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. I mean, if we heard the Cardinals are in the Juan Soto sweepstakes, like let's say Katie Wu tweeted that out, I might DM her separately and be like, "Are,
No, you're
are you okay?
not. Yeah,
Like
stop lying.
this isn't you. Like it's just
You're
like
better than this.
yeah, no, it's yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm a Cardinals fan, and this conversation, if I'm a Cardinals fan listening to this, like this is tough to hear
Yeah,
because
for
it's
sure.
not like they're just coming off a 68 win season and they're like, yeah, we expect to get trashed. They're coming off 83 and 79, and you're telling us that this nightmare season is only going to continue to get
Yeah, but
worse. Unfortunately, I think
that's
so.
what the front offices unfortunately set themselves up
Yeah,
for. Like
yeah.
they've made that clear that they're essentially scaling back and they're looking to enter some thin years, which sucks.
But here's one thing that I want you to do. Like when you go on just roster resource and you
Yeah,
just look
no,
at them
I'm
on
bought
paper,
in.
like, isn't it like
Yeah.
I like this
No,
team, I think.
The Cardinals and the Angels, the two
I-
teams that I buy into
no,
every single March.
that's too far. It's too far to compare them to the Angels.
Not 2025, but going into 22 and 23 and 24, I was like, the Angels they can
Yeah,
do this on
I kind of
paper.
like this team. Yeah, it's strange because I mean, what do I expect from Donovan and Newtbar and Burleson? Like I
But they're
should
names
expect a
that
lot.
carry some gravity when you
Yeah,
read them on roster resources. You're like,
yeah,
yeah, you
I
know
feel
what? I
good.
can get behind this.
And that's why it's got to suck to be a Cardinals fan because they're seeing the same names we are. And it's like, why is this team not better? Why are we so mid? Ugh.
I've got a tweet in there somewhere. I have a tweet where I'm like, I'm essentially just gassing the Cardinal lineup. Like
Because it
I
looks
know it's
good.
in there. Yeah, here you go. Um, February 29th, 2024. Wilson Contreras catching, Goldie at first, Gorman and Donovan at second, Arenado at third, Wynn at short, Newt in left, Edmund in center, Jordan Walker in right, Gorman and Donovan DHing.
That team
Bench
could
of
win the World
Herrera,
Series.
Carlson, Brandon Crawford, and then Matt Carpenter. On the way, Victor Scott and Sajazi. And then I said, obsessed.
In
Like,
a different dimension, that's an incredible team. Like, if none of the bad years happened, right, in the fifth dimension, that team is in the playoffs and competing against the Dodgers in the NLCS.
what sucks is like it's not like they were super hurt. Like that was essentially
Yeah.
the lineup
Yeah.
that they ran out,
Yeah,
and it still wasn't that great.
that was the team.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was the team. And I was
Nolan
obsessed
Gorman.
with a team that wasn't that great.
Nolan Gorman. I mean, couldn't hit water if he fell off a boat last year.
Yeah, it was bad.
I was so excited for him.
I understand. I
Oh,
understand. And we're going to save the fixes. We're going to scale how they can effectively, downsize for the GM episode, but we'll give them a grade. We also didn't give the Brewers and Cubs grade. So let's do all three of those right now.
yeah. So
Cardinals, yeah, Brewers. Go ahead.
Brewers, I made a huge mistake saying that the Guardians were the only A+ team. This was a clear A+ team. Clearly.
I
Jack
think you have
plus
to
800 to
factor
win the division.
you got to factor the postseason in. I do think that this was an A team. I don't think this was an A plus.
You're crazy. You are
Okay.
crazy. A
Okay.
plus. No, this team won 92, 93 games, changed manager, changed GMs. Nobody believes in them. Plus 800. They almost had the same odds to win the division as the Nationals did to win the East. I mean,
Wow.
this team was given up on. And yeah, they didn't perform great in the playoffs. But if we're being honest, arguably should have beat the Mets, right?
Yeah.
If you simulate that Devin Williams, Pete Alonso bat 1,000 times, like how many times is Pete Alonso getting that ball over the fence? Right?
Oh,
It's not going to
one.
happen
Yeah.
that many times. So they should be in the NLCS. And then what's the grade? Right? So one swing is changing your grade. I don't think that's fair. I think that this was a definitive A plus,
Okay.
like a
Okay.
99%.
Damn. All right. I was thinking like 96%, so a high A, but not an A plus, but I'll bump it to 97 and that
But
can be
but
like
that's
an A
on
plus.
brand for you. I mean,
It
you're
is.
still
It's
doubting
totally
them.
on brand.
The season is over, and you're like, I still did believe it happened.
I'm taking the bit until Christmas, and then once we roll past the holiday season, you know what? New Year's 2025, new me, new Brewer. Thought the Cubs B B minus
B minus.
B minus. They're
They because there
too
are things I'm
much
excited about. There are changes that they can make, but at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I mean, they weren't that good.
too much was left
Yeah,
untapped in that lineup
yeah.
and in that bullpen. Frankly, the Cardinals like D.
D plus.
Yeah, D
No,
plus.
C minus. They finished over 500. Like
Okay, yeah,
we're factoring in too much the long term thing. In
yeah,
reality, it's probably a C plus.
fair, fair. Okay, we've got two more teams here. The Cincinnati Reds finished fourth in the division. They were 77 and 85. Cincinnati was 21st in team OPS. They were 16th in runs scored, 16th in starter ERA, and 18th in bullpen ERA. Cincinnati was firmly middle of the pack in Major League Baseball this year. There were some very endearing qualities to the Cincinnati Reds this year. Ellie De La Cruz breaking out in the way that he did. We're looking at this guy as one of the most, maybe the most, probably the second most electrifying player in baseball behind Ohtani, and one of the better players in Major League Baseball, I do think. I know he's going to strike out a little bit, but what he does defensively and what he does in terms of changing a game offensively put him in that conversation. Hunter Green achieved what we were waiting for him to achieve this year. He finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. The downside, Alexis Diaz was not good. They were dealing with a lot of injuries. They didn't see Matt Clain. They hardly saw CES. They hardly saw Noelvi Marte. That was not injury related. That was suspension related. There was a lot that went wrong for Cincinnati this year. They tried piecing it together. I'm sure the 24 season can leave a sour taste in a lot of Reds fans' mouths, but be excited for 25 because there was a lot that didn't go right for you in 24, and you still hovered just below 500.
If I was a Reds fan during the season, I would have be incredibly upset at how the season unfolded.
Yeah.
If I am a Reds fan going into 2025, I'm insanely excited because we know baseball. You don't get the bounce this year, you may get the bounce next year. And we talk about it. Biggest bet of my entire life was the Miami Marlins under 78.5 wins last year. Why? Well, a multitude of reasons. But to factor into the luck conversation, they were incredible in one-run games, and it didn't really make a ton of sense to me because they didn't have that great of a bullpen. So that was pure luck, right? I thought that would diminish. Of course, things happen, and the Marlins aren't very good. The Reds are on the opposite side of that spectrum. The Reds went 15 and 28 in one-run games. Like Alexis Diaz didn't have 20 blown saves, right? There were things. I remember watching games, and it'd be like Fernando Cruz would come in with runners on first. It would be like a dribbler, runners on first and second, a walk, and then a grand slam on like a hanging slider. And you're like, well, Fernando Cruz had 66 innings, 106 strikeouts, is a way better pitcher than a 4.86. There was a lot of relievers that just bad shit happened with a lot of guys on base, and it ended up being really, really bad. And then on the offensive side, Jack, the Pittsburgh Pirates had 3 players last year with a negative B WAR who played at least 50 games. Do you know how many Reds players were worth negative baseball reference WAR who played at least 50 games for the Reds?
You said the Pirates had 3 or 5.
Pirates had 3. So how many do you think the Reds then had? Right? Because the Pirates were worse than the Reds. Right? To put in it another, Cubs had 3.
But more. I think the Reds had 4 or 5.
They had 7.
Whoa.
I'm going to read you through these names. Noelvi Marte.
Yeah.
What? I mean, the Reds fans' relationship with Noelvi Marte. He's coming up as one of your top prospects, goes down with steroids.
Yeah, popped for PEDs.
Who's getting popped for PEDs nowadays? I mean
yeah, some guys in the upper minors, Noelvi Marte, Relvis Martinez.
But you don't expect that to happen to one of your top prospects?
It's never something where it's like, yeah, I could have seen it. Like, that's not the case anymore.
And then he comes back, he plays 66 games, and he's worth almost -2 WAR.
Yeah.
And that's just a knife in the gut. Will Benson, we're seeing how incredible he was the year before, how much energy he brought to the locker room, how much power he had. And then he puts up -1.4 B WAR, hits 187 in 128 games.
Yeah.
Right. And this isn't counting CES in 29 games being -1. This isn't counting Mike Ford. But it is counting Nick Martini. It is counting Luke Maile. It is counting Ty France. It is counting Santiago Espinal. And it's counting Heimer Candelario. Yeah. What? Those players are way better than that. So if I'm a Reds fan, Matt McClain goes down. Damn it. Noelvi Marte, steroids and then sucks. Are you kidding me? Right? Nick Martini comes up, hits 7 home runs in 4 days, and then never again. Right? It was so strange. And I got Alexis Diaz blowing saves. I got random errors here. I got Jonathan India finally having a good season. I got Ellie having a good season, and I'm seeing the puzzle pieces being made. I'm seeing Hunter Green look great, but then Lodolo's bad. Why? Why is Graham Ashcraft bad? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's really weird. And I looked at the Reds' rotation going into 24 as a strength. I think the lack of top-end talent aside from Green almost made it a weakness, where I was like, oh, they have 7 guys that they can turn to. One of those guys never really got to the show in 2024 and walked as many guys as anybody in minor league baseball, in Connor Phillips. So that was a whiff on my end. But then it's like, I looked at them piecing together Lodolo and Abbott and Ashcraft and Martinez was good.
Martinez was great.
Martinez was great. But aside from Green and Martinez, like, it really felt like there was nothing going on in this Reds rotation, which is weird.
Well, to be fair, Andrew Abbott was good, but he wasn't great.
Yeah,
so we kind
Abbott is the most stressful watch that I have in baseball.
There's a lot of base runners.
There's a lot, and it's a lot of like, you snuck that one by him, you're not going to do it again. Oh, you did it again, you're not going to do it a third time. Like,
I love that you brought that up, because there were so many times where I bet on Reds money line and Andrew Abbott is pitching. We got bases loaded. And I'm like, oh, shit. and he goes 91 middle.
Yeah.
And he gets like a take. And I'm like, oh, God, don't do that again, please. Right. And then he goes 92 a little bit higher, and they pop out to the infield. And I'm like, what? I'm like, please, how do we get out of this? And then he does.
I like to get outs guys, but for some reason, he's a little bit more stressful than a lot of other people. I will say, in that group that you named, the 2 names that jump out to me, Jeimer Candelario, because you paid him a ton of money. Obviously, like,
he's going to bounce back next year. I mean,
he's going to bounce back.
There's no way he's this bad.
He was a very bad defender, and he was not good offensively. The other one that jumps out to me is Espinal. Like, I thought Espinal could not, with his eyes closed, finish with a WAR under 0. Like, you cannot tell me that he was worse than a replacement level player, but that's the type of season he had, man. Like, he was straight up bad after that trade, and I was stunned to see that.
And on top of that, too, like, I'm getting kind of sick of Fraley and Friedel, just seeing them in the roster resource lineup, seeing them in the lineup all the time.
Friedel, like,
I get it. Like,
sick of Friedel.
I'm not. It's just these guys. They're they're like good in spots and they make you want to play them, and then you give them a little bit more run and it sounds good. And maybe I'm combining two guys that shouldn't be in the same bucket, but I just keep continually getting frustrated where I see good things out of Friedel, and then across the ticker I see TJ Friedel hurts his oblique and is out for 2.5 months, and you're like, what? It's like as soon as he's doing anything positive, it's, well, now he's got a hammy, and Jake Fraley is hurt every other week. And it's like you can't get any momentum from these guys at all. And right, they
Yep.
might show something good one day and then it's not, it's just so inconsistent. And that's what I think littered this Reds lineup outside of really Ellie. It was just inconsistent. Like you'd see good showings then bad showings. And that's why I'd be so furious if I was a Reds fan. Like I can't figure this team out. But again, if we're looking at next year, if they can provide some consistency,
You're insanely excited,
I
and
mean,
this group getting healthy.
think about
Yeah,
this rotation for a second, Jack. Hunter Green is a certified ace.
yeah.
I think Andrew Abbott is good. I'm not out here saying he's great. I know it's a little bit stressful, but he's good.
You're doing the thing that I'm doing, like that I did in 2024. Now, I think it's almost more valid because Rhett Lauder is here.
Yeah. And like, what if Nick Lodolo bounces back and is good? Right now, he doesn't have to be great. He just has to be better than a 4.76 ERA and
Yeah, and he
111
will be.
innings. Rhett
So
Lauder is a stud.
Green, yeah, Green, Lodolo, Martinez, Abbott, Lauder. And then you have fill-in guys like Spires and an Aguiar and a
Damn.
Brandon Williamson.
I mean, all those guys kind of stink, if I'm being real.
Yeah, but that's a five.
Maybe
It's
one of
okay.
them's okay to put in some spot starts.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we're talking about a six starter.
Yeah. And then this lineup, like, I like it. I mean, I love Matt McClain. I think he's a dog. I love Ellie De La Cruz. Tyler Stevenson really stepped up. Spencer Steer is a dog. Heimer Candelario should be a dog. Right? If Friedel can stay healthy in India, they keep him. I mean, this is a really, really good team.
Yeah,
I got
but
to be
if
careful.
this,
I got to see what they do this offseason, but like they are becoming the team where I unload on in the futures market and I'm all in. That's what
if
it's looking
this
like right now for me.
if this reported deal goes through and it's Brady Singer and Jonathan India, like I know Ken Rosenthal and C. Trent Rosecrans were reporting that, but it's like if you all of a sudden add Singer to Green, Martinez, Lauder, Abbott, Lodolo, damn.
And we fix the bullpen a little bit and just the
Yeah.
offensive pieces on the team aren't hurt and shitty because
Yeah.
they're good enough. They're all
I'm with you.
talented.
And you got Terry Francona leading the charge, man.
And that's what I love. I mean,
Um injuries, like you have to factor in injuries to the grade. I guess B minus, C plus, probably
see,
C plus.
I'm almost on the other end of the spectrum. I think this was like a D
Okay, interesting.
because there were people out there who thought the Reds were winning this division.
So I think giving a little bit too much sympathy for the injuries there.
Yeah,
I'll go
no,
C
yeah.
minus. Yeah,
C
C
minus
minus,
is
C plus.
fine. I mean, this
Yeah,
team was objectively below expectations. They
yeah.
played below all of their skill levels. I mean, they're not that much different than the Cardinals from last year, except they have a bright future. But we can't think about the future when grading the 2024 season. Like they were bad. I mean, it was a
B,
really bad, disappointing season.
B minus was stupid. I don't know why I said that. I
No,
take that
but
back.
because we both
Stupid.
do this. No,
Stupid.
we both do this where we're
Yeah,
factoring in other things that don't actually have anything to do with the 2024 season grade.
yeah. I hear you. I'm with you. Okay, last team that we got to talk about is the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates were 76 and 86. They were in last place by a game under Cincinnati. Pirates were 27th in team OPS. They were 24th in runs scored. They were 15th in starter ERA. They were 27th in bullpen ERA. I feel like this is a pretty well documented team. The starting rotation is so exciting. And Bubba
Is
Chandler
it?
and Thomas.
Oh no,
Yes.
yes, you're right. I thought you were talking about 2024. Yes.
No, I mean, like, even in 24, dude, like, they had Skeens. And, I mean, Jones, what they got at the beginning of the year was exciting. But Jones and Keller certainly tapered off at the
No,
end of the year. But
yeah, that's the only thing I was going to say. I thought you were just talking about 2024. The reason I have so many questions about 2024 beyond Skeens
yeah,
like Mitch Keller is treated like a really good pitcher. Is he a really good pitcher, or is he a guy who gives you 170 innings at a low fours, and really he's just Kyle Gibson adjacent?
I need to pull up Keller's year by year splits. So in 2024, before the All Star break, Keller had a 3.46. After the All Star break, he had a 5.65. In 2023, before the All Star break, he had a 3.31. After the All Star break, he had a 5.59.
See,
He
that's
is an
why.
he is an all-star. He is a frontline starter before the All-Star break. And after the All-Star break, he's Kyle Hendricks.
So Mitch Keller is creating such an incredible narrative for him
Yeah.
because when people early on in the season, everyone's watching every team, right? You're talking about,
Yeah.
oh, what could this team do? And Mitch Keller is at the
Like,
top of
oh,
these ERA
Keller's good.
leaderboards,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh yeah, so the Pirates definitely have like an ace here. And then the Pirates start losing. You start focusing in on the contenders, and you don't really notice that Mitch Keller is getting destroyed every day. And then at the end of the year, it's like, oh wait, Mitch Keller went 10 and 12 with a 4.3 and 180 innings, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's not any good. But next year, hey, you got Mitch Keller at the top of the rotation.
Right.
But like, what is that? What does that mean? And Jared
Right.
Jones is in the same bucket where we see him come up early. He's so otherworldly dominant. He's throwing 100 miles an hour, and we're saying co-aces. There was someone on this podcast who said those words, co-aces,
Yeah, I did.
and he was operating like an ace. And then the Pirates start slowing down, and then you're like, wait, Jared Jones is going 4 innings, 4 earned, and he's not even having the strikeouts anymore. And then Luis Ortiz, right, looks really good, looks really exciting. And then at the end of the year, it's like, well, he just gave up 7 earned in 3 innings to the Royals. And when I look at the Pirates rotation from 2024, Luis Ortiz had the second highest WAR. And
Yeah.
you're like, what? How? Did
And
we
was
have a really
Falter
good rotation?
was Falter third?
No, it went Skeens, Ortiz, Keller, Jones, Falter. But the thing is, Keller, Jones, and Falter are all separated by .3 WAR.
Okay.
So, like, yes, he did basically finish third.
There you go. I will say this going into 2025, it's Skeens. You should be really excited about Jones.
You
I
should
have
be
no
excited
idea
about
how much of
Jones.
that was
But
lab
like,
related.
but my question to you is, what should we expect? I have no idea. Like, is he a 3? Is he a 2?
Jones,
Yeah,
I think Jones can be a two.
could be, right? But like, if I put a gun to
What
your
is he in
head and was
2025?
like,
I think Jones in 2025 is a three.
okay, and like, what does that mean?
A
Like a
three
three
means
seven?
you get 160 innings at a 3.6.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like an awesome scenario for him next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
he can do it.
I think it's possible, man. Like that fastball is crazy.
It's great, but can he
Um,
maintain it? Is my
I don't
question.
know. And we'll see when Bubba gets up. We'll see when Harrington gets up. We'll see if Braxton Ashcraft can stay healthy and when he can get up.
Bubba, that's your 2.
Yeah, I mean
That guy's exciting.
Bubba can be a co-ace
Yeah,
with Skeens.
that's
Like,
that's that's where I'm looking at who's filling the 2 because I keep asking myself like, I'm sorry, maybe people disagree. Mitch Keller ain't a 2. He's
no, but
more
like
of a 4.
in this dream world, by the end of the 2025 season, we're talking about Skeens as the best pitcher in baseball. We're
Yep.
talking about Bubba as a 2. We're talking about Jones as a 3, and Mitch Keller gets pushed to your 4, and your
Or
5 is Luis Ortiz or Thomas Harrington.
or is Luis Ortiz your 4 and Keller's your
Yeah, and
5?
Keller's your 5. Like I don't know, man. The window of fun is clearly open. And
Yes.
there's even more coming with Bubba and Harrington and Ashcraft and whoever else. Time to capitalize. And this offense was terrible this year. I mean, they lacked really anything
They
for the
suck to
entire
watch.
6-month regular season.
Re-
It's brutal. And
yeah.
it was very Mariners adjacent
Yeah.
because you tune in to Jones at the beginning of the year. Hell, you tuned into Keller at the beginning of the year. And every fifth day at the end of the year, you were locked in on Paul Skeens. You knew that game was going to be around 2 hours 15 minutes, 2 hours 20 minutes because it was going to be a 2-1 game. Who was going to win to be determined, but that felt like the scenario. Like there was never going to be that 15-run outburst from the Pirate offense. Brian Hayes was not good this year. Brian Reynolds was an all-star. Andrew McCutchen is McCutchen. But at the end of the day, like that catching tandem was not great. Joey Bart was a revelation, but Bart, what does a revelation for Joey Bart look like? Was the OPS plus over 100? I don't think so.
So Joey Bart, yeah, he had a 120 WRC plus.
Wow.
or
Okay.
120 OPS plus. So, but it's probably the same number. So, what I want to ask you, Jack, is what is Joey Bart? Because I remember watching Pirates games and seeing that a big time Joey Bart hit on a fastball and being like, yeah, this dude can hit fastballs. And then you look at the numbers and you say, wow, 12 run value against fastballs, he crushes them. But he's not great against breaking balls and he can't defend at the position. So I'm thinking to myself, well, this is fun, but I don't want Pirates fans to be like, we found our definite catcher, like this guy's the man because of an 80 game sample from a guy who got picked number 2 overall with no real pressure in Pittsburgh and just like hit a bunch of fastballs that he was getting fed.
No, I think Joey Bart has proven that he's going to be the backup catcher to Andy Rodriguez.
Okay, I can get behind that. That's a
Andy
great backup
also
catcher.
Andy also needs to prove that he can hit. Like
Yeah.
he didn't unfortunately prove that at the end of the 2023 season. So we need to see Andy hit. We know that Joey Bart can hit, and he could provide a good backup catcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you have your catching situation taken care of.
Fascinating catching room. It's almost like the it's not quite this, but it's almost kind of like the Broncos quarterback room
Yeah,
where you have Bo Nix, who's ND, or right, or
yeah.
you hope. Zach Wilson, who like had a great throw that one time, and that's your Joey Bart. And then you have Stidham for Henry Davis,
Yeah.
where he's like, he's probably not ever gonna catch, but like kind of looks good occasionally. Right? Like maybe. Like I'd bet on him as a plus 12 favorite in Kansas City and like he'd lose by 11. He hit my bet, but he was terrible. Right? It's an incredible catching room, and I think it's very set up similar to the Broncos, who are pretty good this year.
Man, yeah. I and the thing is, isn't it the Bronco defense?
Yeah,
Right?
it's
Like
Bronco
that's the thing
defense.
that's driving them.
To Brian Hayes' defense, the thing is he can't
I'm
hit.
thinking starting rotation, right? Like, isn't that the defense?
Yeah, yeah, kind of. But their defense is way better than your starting rotation. It's kind of like Brian Hayes is your Pat Surtain, but it's like asking Pat Surtain then to go play quarterback. Like he
See,
can't hit.
I think Skeens is Pat Sertan,
Yes,
right?
no, I'm more mean just like the great defender. I was more
For
making a
sure,
joke.
for
Yes.
sure. But yeah, like the catching room is taken care of, but there are questions that need to be answered at first base. I think second base, like you might have found it in York, but at the end of the day, it's a tandem of York and Nick Gonzalez. Like,
I
who
like Nick
knows?
Gonzalez.
Yeah,
I
I
do.
like York and Gonzalez. O'Neill Cruz all of a sudden vacated the shortstop position and it's IKF for a year. And then what happens after that? You've got O'Neill Cruz in center. Okay, center field is answered. Brian Reynolds, like you would love to get him out of a corner outfield because he's really not good defensively.
And you probably think that he put up an 800 OPS this year, right?
790, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 800.
Yeah. It's pretty good. He's the best player.
Crazy. They didn't have a single guy, regardless of like how many plate appearances, put up an 800 OPS. Usually there are guys with 5 plate appearances that have an 800 OPS.
Even I just think it's
Didn't
hilarious. Joey
happen.
Bart ended on 799.
Yeah, like that was the leader. So
Yeah.
yeah, I apologize to Joey Bart. I thought your OPS plus was under 100. It was 120, but that's your high mark in this lineup. And
Like how
this
many
bullpen, man.
his team had so many 500 OPS guys.
Yeah, they did.
Like unplayable bats that they had 4 of them in the lineup
I
at the
mean,
same.
Michael A. Taylor at a 543 this
Yeah,
year, dude.
I'm
Like,
sure there were lineups some days where you had Jack Sawinski in it with his negative 1.8 WAR and 588 OPS with McCutcheon and Michael A. McCutcheon was great. I shouldn't be factoring him into this, but like the Brian Hayes, Michael A. Taylor,
yep,
Jared Triolo lineups where it's
yep.
like you had no shot that day.
Right. That is what needs to get fixed, and I feel like that's what Pirates fans are clamoring for. They also need some bullpen help, and I don't know what that looks like. Bednar's regression needs to be studied. Like I crazy that happened to David Bednar from being
Yeah.
so good to a 5.77
Isn't
in
that kind of
57.
isn't that kind of what happens when the team asks you to throw every day for multiple
Billion
years and then your
Yeah,
arms just fried?
I guess, but like I thought Holderman for the overwhelming majority of the year was really good for them. I think
Yeah,
Majinski is a good big league reliever. I think Kyle Nicholas is a good big league reliever.
agreed.
There's so much here that I'm asking about in the lineup and in the bullpen.
Looking really at the bullpen, it's really bad.
I mean, is
Because
it?
you're saying like who do you love? I mean, like Colin Holderman is very solid.
No, you don't love anybody. I think you like Bednar. Like you don't love that he's not an all-star closer anymore, but you're not MFing yourself because you have David Bednar in your bullpen.
You were
I think you
last
like Bednar. You like Holderman.
You were last year though. Like I can't say that I like Bednar. I have nothing to go off of. I
Yeah, but
hope
do you feel like you're waving the white flag in the ninth inning
it
in
felt like it this
2025?
year.
It
So
felt like it this year,
it's
so I'm
tough.
asking in 25, is that going to be the case? I feel like that's the kind of guy that can wipe the slate clean,
I hope
but
so.
we'll find out a month in.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that can happen because that's big for the Pirates.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, though, I mean, he was bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
But
lot
like
of things that we
there's a
can do
lot of
here,
guys
though.
that I like.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people I love.
It's like the only guys I like are the guys who I haven't seen a lot of. So,
Yeah.
right, like I'm really excited to see Endy. I'm really excited to see more of O'Neal Cruz. Like I think I know what I'm going to get from Brian Reynolds. I'm not excited about anybody else. Then we move to the rotation. I'm unbelievably excited about Skeens. Everybody else, like I'm excited-ish to see Jones. I just I'm not bought into that yet. And then nobody in the bullpen. So there's like four guys who I'm really excited to see, and one of them I haven't even really seen any of all yet.
Yeah, so add another, man. Like I do think the presence of a Tyler O'Neill in this lineup could be everything for the Pirates.
But then what if he gets hurt? And yeah, I agree.
I
Yes,
think they got to try.
yes. Like, what's Tyler O'Neill going to do to this team? Really, it'll make them a little bit better.
I think that it's at least a threat and it extends the lineup by
Yeah,
one guy.
yeah.
Like the difference between a threat of five versus a threat of six, I think is a big deal.
And if you get a healthy Tyler O'Neill for the entire year, I mean, that's a guy who can, compete at an all-star level
Yeah, hit 35 homers.
easily. Just
He could
there's
have
a
an
reason
800
he's
OPS,
there's a
which
reason
is
he's going to
something
be
that he
cheap,
didn't get.
but there's a reason he's going to be cheap on the market.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what they do in terms of that, and obviously we'll save the playing GM for them. But great on this season.
I
I guess C minus, C minus.
think you're being too nice.
Okay.
I mean, they went 76 and 86, and I gave the Reds with higher expectations. Like the Reds should have the lowest grade in this division. And
So
what
you
did
gave
I
him a
say for
D,
them?
a D. So the Pirates are a D plus.
C minus might be okay just because Paul Skeens is so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
And it seems like they like found an answer with O'Neill Cruz moving to
yeah,
center at the end of the year.
I'll give him a C minus because I am very titillated by O'Neal Cruz right now. I mean, he showed something at the end of the year.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, strikeout rate, like if I just pull up real quick, I just kind of want to read you some of these numbers because they're really enticing and they should get a lot of Pirates fans really, really excited. 821 OPS, 357 OBP because he's walking more, he's striking out less. The power was definitely there. In 100 less plate appearances, same amount of doubles, speed too. Like 15 stolen bases in the second half compared to 7 in the front half with more games played. He's getting used to playing center field. I mean, this guy hits the ball as hard as anybody else, throws the ball as hard as anybody else, runs as fast as anybody else. He's 26. Like, this is a guy who could take an enormous jump next year if everything works out.
It's funny, man. Like he had a bad September. He hit a buck 60 in 24 games, and he still finished with an 821 OPS after the All Star break. Like he was awesome in August, 389 with a 986 OPS in the
Yeah.
month of August.
I mean, at the end there, right?
Yeah.
When Keller is doing Mitch Keller second half things and Jared Jones doesn't look quite as good and Luis Ortiz just gave up 4 earned or 7 earned in 4 innings. Like they won a few of those games because O'Neal Cruz was dominating.
Yeah.
And
Also,
that's a superstar. Like that's not Brian Reynolds doesn't do that. He's just very good
yeah.
for a lot of the season.
Also,
O'Neal Cruz is a difference maker.
very funny. O'Neal Cruz, a 577 OPS on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, a 507 OPS. And then on Fridays, a 973. On Saturdays, an 882. He
And what
likes
does
the
that
big
tell you?
attendance days. He
Yeah, what does
likes the
that
big
tell you?
ticket days.
That tells me that there's a lack of focus sometimes going on.
It might just be coincidence.
Could be.
Cool. Yeah, I'll settle on C minus.
It's fair. 70
Cool.
on
Easy.
division.
I think that's it.
I really do like this division. I hope
I do
everybody
too.
enjoyed the National League Central season in review. And if you did, the best way to support, especially, in the dog days of the off season, we really, really appreciate every 5-star review, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every subscriber on YouTube, all the likes that you guys press, really comments that you leave, anything that we said that you don't like, things that you like, things that you want us to build on, really relying on our audience here in the off season to help us out. So if you can, by leaving YouTube comments, by leaving reviews, of course, our DMs on Twitter, which you can find in the episode description, are always open to answer any questions, ideas for off season stuff, fully open. We want to create content that is best suited for our audience here. So please let us know. And again, the best way to support, if you want to spend a little extra money, is, it's getting a little chilly. Maybe get yourself a just baseball sweatshirt, maybe a
Yeah,
long
I saw
sleeve
it. Did you
tee.
see Brandon's tweet?
I retweeted. It's 34
Nice.
degrees in Illinois, and he's wearing his stuff. Of course, some just baseball hats too, and definitely sign up for the free agent prediction contest.
Yeah, there you go.
Influenced by MLB trade rumors, they've been doing it for a long time. We've all contributed in and out of those, but we wanted to create our own. Of course, it's free. You can find the link in the description of this episode. And join in. Just fill it out. I was sending it to all of my friends, and they were like, "Oh, I love this. I got all of them right." So if you've been chirping
Good.
our picks, if you have chirped any of us any times, you have to compete. You just have to
Yeah.
compete because we're
Yep.
going to pick a winner. You're going to get a ton of merch. Arm even tweeted out that he's got some cards to give out, right? It's free to enter. You fill out your free agent predictions and you can win prizes from it. I mean, this is awesome. We're all competing together. So make sure to go fill that out. And again, you can find the link in the episode description or you can find it in the link tree. It's the first link there. We'll be back. Oh no, this is the Friday
This
episode.
is right.
This
Yeah,
is the
this is
Friday
the Friday
episode.
show. You got it.
So everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday with the National League West, and then we start diving into some more fun off-season stuff. For Jack McMullen, I am Peter Apple. Have a great weekend. And with that, thank you, everybody.